But then so is Joel Damon. He can write his own ticket with any film studio in Hollywood these days. He picked up his second Oscar last year, you know. How could I help it? With an odd sense of reluctance, her gaze followed his to the corner of the room. In the conventional tuxedo he wore with such careless elegance, Damon's tall, slim body gave off an aura of power that dominated the little circle around him. There was a lazy smile on those cynical lips now as he looked down at the woman beside him. She was chattering with almost desperate vivacity in the attempt to hold his attention. His green sorcerer's eyes were nearly hidden by his heavy lids, so that only a jewel-bright gleam shone through the dark lashes. Then those lashes flicked up, and his gaze met hers with the impact of an electric shock. Electricity. Yes, that's the word for the whorls of power that were radiating from him, and again she was conscious of the sensation of being caught in the paws of a predator. This time his oddly possessive glance didn't stop at her face, but wandered over her golden throat and shoulders to the full thrust of her breasts against the cinnamon chiffon gown. His gaze lingered there for a long moment and, incredibly, she felt her breasts respond to his hot glance as if he actually touched her. Then he looked at her slim waist, hips, and long legs. When his glance shifted from her to Dave, she let out her breath in a rush of relief. Dave Balding's lips pursed in a soundless whistle. "When did you meet Joel Damon, Ken? I have an idea you didn't need my help to get you on the payroll." "What?" She shook her head as if to clear it. What in heaven's name was wrong with her tonight? "I've never met the man," she said lightly. "I imagine the only reason I was invited to this party was that his secretary noticed my name on the production log." Her glance flitted around the room, dramatically decorated in black and white. "It's far from a select gathering anyway. Everyone from the wardrobe woman to the key grip is here tonight." Her gaze returned to the blonde standing beside Damon, not to mention half the starlets in Hollywood. "Joel's leaving for Sedicon tomorrow, and he usually throws a party for the cast and crew the night before he goes on location," Dave said. "Not that I think he enjoys it. I get the distinct impression that the social scene bores him to tears." He moved his shoulders uneasily. "You're sure you haven't met him before? That look I'm getting from our Lord and Master is definitely menacing." "It has to be your imagination," she said deliberately, shifting her position so that her back was turned to Damon. But even then she could feel the force of his gaze on her bare back and shoulders. "From what I've heard, it's not unusual for Joel Damon to display an interest in a woman. Any woman." She took several sips of her champagne before speaking again. "Perhaps his boredom is extending to that lush little blonde who's hanging on to his every word." "Maybe." Dave's smile brightened his plain face. "It's not the first time you've shut out the competition without even trying." His admiring glance skimmed over her long chestnut hair. It tumbled down her back in a silken curtain and shimmered with 1,000 tiny flames in the softly lit room. "Most men take one look at you and immediately decide that you're just what they need as an erotic nightcap. I don't know how I escaped your luscious allure all these years." "I do." Kendra's deep brown eyes were twinkling. "It probably had something to do with the fact that I tagged after you and Casey from the time I could toddle. What's that expression? Familiarity breeds contempt?" His face sobered. "Never contempt, Kendra," he said quietly, raising his hand and gently stroking the curve of her cheek. "I think I respect you more than anyone I've ever known." He hesitated. "How is Casey?" "Better," she answered. "Much better." Her face clouded. "He was pretty bitter at first, but who could blame him? I don't think anyone could accept being partially paralyzed without going a little crazy, particularly a man like Casey, who knew it also meant the end of his career as a stuntman." She tried to smile. "He's studying law now, you know. Casey always was a great one for talking. He'll probably become a Supreme Court justice before he's satisfied." "I wouldn't doubt it," Dave said softly. "Casey's the type of man who gets whatever he goes after. Is he still in that convalescent home in the valley?"